Welcome back to the NAO show. We are being blessed with a champion of the 21 NAO Football League. I'm the Prince.
here.
That's Tank Top Mike. That's Marky Mark. And that is the champion, A-Bomb. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I will say it was a wild ride to get into the playoffs. First of all, knock you out in the last week there, Sean. Really enjoyed that. Beating Ian was a highlight of my life, not only fantasy, but it was a good game. It was a good game, and then great game at the end. Just wild ride with some of the flex plays. Braxton Berrios, shout out to Rex Burkhead. Never thought in my life I'd see a roster including those two starters, but it all worked out on a gut feeling. And hey, we're here. I sold out to win this year. I'm not picking again in the draft till 27, I believe. So hopefully this one sticks around for a while. But no, it was great. We had a blast this year, and definitely excited for what's to come.
A-Bomb sounds like Matt Stafford after the Super Bowl. Man, I really got to just thank my staff, the players out there, my wife for supporting me. Appreciate everything. I really put it all out in the field. Thanks, A-Bomb.
Yeah, anytime.
Well, there's a special reason that A-Bomb is here. We are doing the NAO Awards nomination show today. We got 4 categories, 3 that you might know, 1 that you definitely don't know because we just came up with it. We're going to run down these nominations. We're going to get into it. Marky Mark, let's go. Kick us off.
We're going to start with the Flex of the Year candidates. I'll name them off one at a time. We'll do a little round table until we get all of them in. So, starting off with the Flex of the Year award, the first nomination is for Cordarrelle Patterson. So, this is the guy that nobody expected much out of this year, I don't think, especially with Mike Davis going there. I think everybody thought it was going to be Mike Davis's backfield, but Cordarrelle Patterson came in there and not only was doing it receiving, but did pretty well running the ball too. And definitely was good for Goofy this year. Goofy loses JK, but he's able to put Cordarrelle right in there. That was pretty nice for Goofy. What do you think, Sean?
Yeah, I think before we started this season, we all had Patterson on our big boards as blow-up candidates, right? Everyone saw this coming. But no, he had a good year. He had 548 yards receiving with 618 yards rushing. 618 yards rushing. That's pretty level year, if you say so myself.
True flex guy too. Being you can roster him as running back, wide receiver. Not many. I don't think there's many dual eligible players, and usually when they're dual eligible, it's because they're not very good. So for him to be able to do that.
I feel like there was an instance last year when somebody was dual eligible and everybody thought he was going to do really, really well in that other position and turned out to be garbage. What do you think, Ed?
Yeah, so, Patterson was frustrating for me because I saw him. He was sitting there as a free agent, not even a waiver wire pickup, but he was trending at the beginning of the year, and I couldn't figure out why. I really couldn't. I knew Mike Davis was going to be their running back. I was looking at the rookie running backs to see if I felt like maybe Mike Davis wasn't going to be the full answer, but I didn't connect the dots that Patterson might have such a presence in the backfield. So, seeing him blow up every week, the weeks that he did at least, it was kind of frustrating because I could have easily picked him up and had him in my lineup with some of the injuries I went through. But it's that's the league. He's been around for quite a while, several years now, and most years never couldn't hear from him. But this year it just kind of all worked out with the right scheme and the right offense, and he put up some great fantasy points.
Unfortunately for us, he did not put up great fantasy points against Dallas. So.
yeah, that was a week off for him. But I mean, that's got to be frustrating for the Pitt's owners of the world because you feel like a lot of those targets probably should have, you were thinking, hey, they're going to go to Pitts this year, and they didn't. Patterson ended up vulturing all those touchdowns, and just kind of took away fantasy stats from the other, like the Calvin Ridleys and the Pitts of the world in Atlanta.
Yeah, finally put together a good season at what, age 30, 31.
Better late than never, I guess.
Finally did what we thought he could do in the league. All right, let's go on to our next nominee for the flex position. We're going to go with Jalen Waddle. John, this is your guy. I'll let you start it off on Jalen Waddle.
Well, Jalen Waddle in his rookie season had 140 targets, in which he caught 104 of them and had over 1,000 yards. So, yes, we had the extra game this year, but he made it over the century mark on a kind of wonky team with wonky quarterback play. So, yeah, good year. He definitely was in my flex play at least every week he was playing. So,
yeah, I like Waddle because he averaged 12 points a game. Yeah, pretty solid. And if you look at his scores per week, he had a few games. 24. He actually had 24 points twice, but for a lot of that was really around that 12 points. So you knew what his floor was going to be every week. It's like Sean says, short up the flex. That's a guy you want to put in there. You know what he's going to give you every week.
Yeah, for me, I ended up with Parker at some point in the season, and obviously he spent a lot of the year injured, and having the rookie come in, you obviously know that he's going to give up some targets, and that offense was, a tale of two cities. They lost every game imaginable first half of the year, and then won everything in the last half. So, I mean, he put up a lot of stats. I mean, obviously there seemed to be a lot going on behind the scenes there with the quarterback situation. Obviously he's a star. I mean, Alabama receivers, obviously, it's a lot of potential there. So, but frustrating for me as a Parker. Do I start him? Do I not start him? I think I started him in a playoff game, and Parker got no points because of Waddle. So that was pretty frustrating.
So the deciding factor on if the Miami Dolphins were going to win is if Jalen Waddle had 7+ targets.
He was good for Tua, I think. He gets open, shifty guy, and definitely got a rapport going there with Tua. He's a good one. He's got a lot of targets, and he's got a lot of promise moving forward. But he was a great flex this year for sure. All right, we're going to move on to our next nominee in the flex category. That is DJ Moore. So this is Mike's player. Tank Top, start us off with DJ Moore.
Hey, that's me. That's my guy. He was one, everyone, he started off pretty hot. He started off obviously tied to Darnold, and he's never had a good quarterback. Even when he was with Cam, it wasn't, this year especially was not great. He's never had a good quarterback, but his floor is, it's pretty consistent week to week. Obviously he dips down a little bit, but he's another guy kind of like Waddle. You put him in, you know what you're going to get. He score a touchdown or two. He only scores 4 touchdowns a year. You know what you're going to get with him.
But I think if DJ Moore received a couple more touchdowns, we might be talking about him in the MVP category. He only had 93 catches, but with 93 catches, he did over 1,100 and 191 fantasy points this year. He had a great year. Just he's the opposite of touchdown dependent. He'll get you yards per catch.
Yeah, I mean, 93 receptions with who was his quarterback? I mean, there's a good chance that neither one of those quarterbacks are starting next year. Imagine what he would do in a situation. Imagine if he was up in Green Bay this year with Aaron Rodgers and Adams alongside Adams. Yeah, it's crazy to think about.
Green Bay. If anybody's in Green Bay, they're just gonna be absolutely worthless because Rodgers only throws it to Adams.
Well, I'm
Only.
thankful he did this year, but I don't think that's how they wanted to run that offense. But it's crazy to me, like, the fact that he hasn't scored, I really put that on the lack of, a solid quarterback.
I
But
agree.
with the number of receptions that he's getting, with the talent that's throwing to him, I mean, obviously the upside is huge. And I know when I saw Mike trade for him at the end of the year, I was a little nervous about what that meant. He just kept getting stronger and stronger at wide receiver. But yeah, I mean, that was the limitation. They didn't know who's going to throw to him. Obviously, the Cam experiment didn't work out as intended. I'm curious to see what next year looks like with a new quarterback likely in that fold. So no, but consistent, like you said, he's got a high floor. He's got the talent to get the receptions and get the yards, and the missing piece obviously is the scoring, which will probably come.
Yeah, it's maddening with DJ Moore because of his quarterback play. We're talking about him as a flex rather than a wide receiver. One. He could easily be a top 5 guy in the right situation, but he's never had that situation, unfortunately. So he does well to get what he gets and to be in consideration in the flex spot here.
The crazy thing
Hopefully.
about DJ Moore, like you said, it's maddening because like it's not
Yeah.
he could be good if he has a good quarterback. Like we know he could because the first 4 weeks of the season, everyone thought like, oh, Sam Darnold is it. He's the man. Finally a good spot, and DJ Moore scored 12, 18, 17, 28 fantasy points those 4 weeks. And then Sam Darnold became Sam Darnold in the rest of the year. But so DJ Moore can do it. He just doesn't he never had the quarterback.
I think they had
Great point, Mike.
they had the easiest schedule to start off the season.
Yeah,
I
they
think
had
they played
Dallas in week 4. They had Dallas in week 4.
Well, yeah, okay.
Those
First
are
3
highest
games,
scoring
though.
year or highest scoring.
He actually played pretty good against Dallas too, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly. But that's what I
Half
think.
his
After that, it
touchdowns were
all kind
against
of
Dallas.
fell off the rails there. All right, let's do our last flex nominee, a guy who is near and dear to my heart. That is Damian Harris. I'll start it off. He's not my player, but I feel like he's my player because I bet on him this year. And one dinner that I still haven't gotten, but we'll get out there soon. We'll send you pictures of my nice meal that Sean's gonna buy me with Harris finishing as an RB2. But yeah, Harris, we all talked about him earlier. He was not a guy that you were putting in there at RB1, RB2. He was definitely flex consideration, and he had some boomer bust potential, but he had some really good games, and he was good with touchdowns this year. So he was definitely a decent person to have in your flex. He helped you probably more weeks than he hurt you. What do you think, Sean? I know you love you some Damian.
Well, first and foremost, you can go take a jump off a freaking pier. Second of all, I'm happy that somebody was able to carry Silly Dilly's roster as far as it did, for as long as it did. That's what she said. And he had a pretty darn good season, I will say. 15 touchdowns for a running back, pretty darn good. And he almost had 1,000 yards rushing, which is also really good. So to be considered as a flex play at 25, pretty darn good.
Yeah, I'll agree. I mean, the challenge with the Belichick offense is you never know what it's going to look like. They spent a ton of money on those tight ends, Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith, and I thought they were going to throw it to the tight ends all year. And I mean, it's tough to invest in a running back in that offense because you never know if they're going to be used at all. I mean, look at what happened with Sony Michel. Obviously never really used in that offense. So it's sometimes it's scheme dependent. Sometimes and that you have the Buffalo games where he scored 3 touchdowns because they literally didn't pass. I mean, how do you predict that type of stuff? But he was consistently getting, he was consistently getting some points. I mean, obviously he had a few duds throughout the year, but definitely exceeded anything I had for expectations for him. Just because you didn't know what that offense was going to be like with a new quarterback. And they spent a lot of money on other positions, and you figured they'd try to get a return out of it. But hey, it worked out for Damian. Next year he may have 600 yards. Who knows? But at least this past year, he definitely had a heck of a year.
Yeah, like you said, not knowing what a Belichick offense is going to look like, especially when it comes to running back. There's been like what a 10, 15-year fantasy strategy of avoiding that entire backfield for forever really. And here comes Damian Harris, and turns out he's RB2.
Uh, sorry, I was doing something else and he cut off quick, and I'm like, oh, I gotta go back on there. Gotta go back on there. All right, so Harris, last one in our flex category. So I'll name them off again here. We got Cordarrelle Patterson, Jalen Waddle, DJ Moore, and Damian Harris. Those are your 4 nominees in the flex of the year category. We will go on to our next category, which is rookie of the year. And we will start off with Najee Harris. This
There's
was
never been any arguments about rookie of the year in this league, so this will be exciting.
this is Sean's favorite category. Start us
I
off,
love
Sean.
this category.
Start us off, Sean. Start us off on Najee Harris.
All right, so most people are going to make the argument of why he should be rookie of the year. I'm going to make the argument of why he should not be rookie of the year. My argument for not rookie of the year is his yards per carry at 3.9 with 307 attempts. Now, we know how bad the Steelers were. We know how bad Big Ben was. This guy got a bunch of attempts to run the ball, and his yards per carry wasn't that great. What really saved him this year was his yards in general because of all the carries he gets. He had 1,200 yards, which is fantastic. I totally agree with that. But what really gave him the fantasy points was his receiving, because Big Ben was just dinking and dunking it all over the place. So, yes, he should be in the conversation for Rookie of the Year. He was RB3 this year. He had 7 touchdowns. I mean, the stats are there, but the one that you should really consider is the yard per carry. Is that going to be able to be reproduced at that point level with that average?
That's a good way to look at it. The way I look at Harris is, yeah, he had 74 receptions out of the backfield. Not many tenured NFL running backs are able to both catch the ball and rush to 1,200 yards. I mean, he had 10 total touchdowns. I mean, it's tough because obviously they knew Roethlisberger isn't who he was 20 years ago or 15 years ago. He wasn't going to throw the ball downfield as much, and they probably knew that Harris was going to get as many touches as he did per game, but he was still able to put up numbers. Obviously, the yards per carry definitely was lower, but to 73 reception or 74 receptions by a rookie running back in this league, that's impressive, and I think it puts him on the list. Where it puts him on the list, I'm not sure, but he definitely made the most of the opportunity he had, and I think he's definitely up of the top rookies this year.
Yeah, I'm going to say, out of context, a 3.91 yard per carry is probably a good argument against him. But when you look at the Steelers and how bad their offensive line was as a whole, a 23-year-old rookie running back averaging almost 4 yards a carry behind that offensive line is actually kind of pretty impressive. And then you factor in, the whole receiving stuff. Obviously, it adds on. And then I think one of the bigger one argument for Najee especially is that dual threat. Guys like that, their game ages well. You look at a guy like Eckler. He's nobody really talks about how old he's getting. And the volume doesn't necessarily need to be there for a guy like Najee Harris to do well. So, the Steelers are pretty bad, and if they get a little bit better, I think Najee could kind of repeat what he did this year.
I was going to bring up the same thing, Mike, about the bad offensive line, so I'm glad you brought that up. He was the RB3, and a guy that you pick in a rookie draft that you're able to put right in your lineup and get points like that every week. I think that's definitely good candidate for Rookie of the Year. I get what you're saying there, Sean, but
As a disclaimer, I'm not saying that Harris is bad and you shouldn't like him, all right? I'm just saying it's not a clear cut Harris runs away with it, pun intended, all right? Let's
Yeah.
just take a
Yeah.
beat. Let's look at everybody.
I just look at it like there's only so many rookies that you can start in the rookie year that can have an impact, and he did. So I definitely think he's worth the consideration there. So moving on to the next nominee in our Rookie of the Year category, we're going to go with Mac Jones. So we normally don't include quarterbacks in this kind of thing, but I thought this was a good time to do it. You guys agreed with me that Mac Jones, he definitely overachieved. He wasn't the most sought after quarterback in rookie drafts, but he was probably the most successful, and not real big numbers, but he took his team to the playoffs. And I ended up with him on my roster. If I had to start him every week, it wouldn't have killed me. It wouldn't have been the worst thing. So definitely another guy that get him in the rookie draft. A lot of quarterbacks, usually only the real top ones are the ones that you're starting and getting any points out of. So I thought Jones definitely overachieved, did better than the big names in last year's draft, and was definitely worthy of consideration. What do you think, guys?
Yeah, I think
I'll
Mac
agree.
Jones. Go ahead, Ed.
No, sorry. No,
You're
and the
fine.
way I look at Mac Jones is, in that situation, starting as a rookie, I mean, your main job is to not lose games for your team, right? I mean, obviously the turnovers, that's the big risk with a rookie coming into the league, playing a pro style offense at NFL game speed. And I mean, he had his bumps, obviously. I mean, he had some games that, he had, I think, double digit interceptions. He had some games where he only threw the ball a few times because of the scheme. But they rattled off wins. They got to the playoffs. It wasn't easy to do in that division. And I mean, the guy just won. I think his leadership off the field kind of is a big part of that. I mean, obviously he's young and having fun, but he's also coming into the league well respected. And that's tough for a rookie to do. Take the reins of that offense that, has had that much success over the years. And that's, I mean, not many people on earth could really step into that situation and be successful. And, obviously he has some growth, but, getting to the playoffs year one, that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think coming into a franchise like the Patriots after losing the best player in football history in Tom Brady, that's a lot of pressure. And Bill Belichick made it a area where Mac Jones could thrive, but not destroy himself. You know, and I'd like to let's let's take Mac Jones and compare him a little bit to other quarterbacks in this last draft, Fields and Wilson. I won't say your quarterback Avon is in consideration because he didn't play at all this year, so don't shoot me. All right. So Mac Jones had 3,800 yards. Justin Fields had 1,800 yards. Zach Wilson had 2,300 yards. Zach Wilson had 11 INT. Justin Fields had 10. Jones had 13, but he also threw almost 200 more times than the other two. And there's a one game where he only threw it 3 times. So I think he excelled at the position, even when on draft day, he was sliding down the board and everybody was like, "Oh, he's a bust," and everybody thinks it. Bill Belichick didn't think it, and I think he's happy with what he got.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to consider last year with the Patriots and Cam Newton sort of just like nothing, and Mac Jones is truly the guy that they're going to try to replace Brady with. Everybody knew last year was sort of a gap year anyway. My only issue with Mac Jones is the dude's boring. It's like he's just a boring dude. But we'll see what happens. A full off season. Another full off season. Obviously, they made the playoffs, so be boring. But maybe they can open up the playbook a little bit with the guy. Going into next year, kind of see what Belichick can do with him in year 2. That'll be exciting, actually, though.
Mike, have you heard of Wrestling Bitch Face? Mac Jones is basic white bitch.
Oh, well. Moving on. That's my second moving on. All right, let's go to our next nominee in the Rookie of the Year category. We're going to go with Kyle Pitts, tight end. So Pitts had a great rookie season. Definitely, we all know that rookie tight ends don't do what Pitts did. I think there was a lot of hype. Maybe people had too much expectation for him. But when you look at what he did and you compare it to some of the best rookie campaigns for tight end, you have to give him consideration there.
Yeah, I definitely give him consideration. I mean, just like you said, usually it's a 2 to 3 year process for a tight end to come in, and everybody expected him to come in and be the next Kittle in his rookie year. But there's a lot of stuff as a tight end you gotta do. You gotta learn it. You gotta learn the playbook. You gotta learn to block at an NFL level, and then you gotta learn how to be a wide receiver at an NFL level. That's a lot of stuff to put on a 21-year-old, But he had over 1,000 yards and he had 68 catches on 110 targets, which I think is low. I think he should be up in the 160 targets if I was Atlanta. I mean, it's not like they had a plethora of targets to throw the ball to, and Matt Ryan ain't throwing it more than 10 yards anymore. So I think next year is going to be a lot more targets. But the targets that I think is going to be significant are targets in the end zone. If they make to the end zone, I think Kyle Pitts should be your one and only target.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, and I think that's probably frustrating for anyone who's drafted Kyle Pitts, is that they saw Patterson kind of get some of those vulture touchdowns that you would think would go to Pitts in that situation. Obviously, the kid has, physical abilities and, in the right scenario, he kind of started off slow this year, but he obviously kind of showed, I think week 5 or 6, he kind of finally shined through with some good success, and that's only going to get better. It's just, it's tough for the rookie year because he wasn't in the best of situations. The Falcons were not as competitive as they could have been. I don't know what they're going to do with Matt Ryan, but it's not the answer anymore. And but to do what he did in that scenario, especially with Patterson getting all those targets and taking away those touchdowns, he's going to have a great career. It's just this is kind of the stepping point for it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with him. I think like Mark said, the expectations were pretty astronomical, and when you really kind of step back and look at him realistically, I think he really met what should have been the expectations. Like he had a phenomenal season, but yes. I think the biggest thing for me for him to be rookie of the year would be the position scarcity again. Of if you can have a tight end, the dude's 21 years old. I mean, how old is Kelsey? Like 32, and like we're still trotting him out as tight end 1. I mean, if Ricky has Kyle Pitts, being a top tight end for the next 11 years, if Ian hasn't run him out of the league by then, I mean, that's
which is always a threat. It's always a threat,
I think if somebody's gonna get ran out of this league, it's not gonna be Humpty.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty resilient. Yeah, I think we got Matt Ryan's probably going to be there one more year. But if you watch Pitt's games this year, I mean, he definitely had times where he struggled, but then man, he'd make plays where you're just like, okay, yeah, he's doing that now, and he's going to do more of that moving forward, and he's just going to be awesome. I mean, he catches the ball down the field like a receiver. That part of the hype was true. He'll get better at that as he goes along, and he's an exciting one to have in a dynasty league for sure. So, all right, let's go to our last nomination in the Rookie of the Year category. That is Jamar Chase. This is my guy. I don't want to talk about him though. I love having him, but I don't want to brag on him. So Sean, I'm going to let you start.
Well, let me go ahead and
Lucky
make this
guy.
argument for you there, boss. Let's compare him to another well-known wide receiver that should have been Rookie of the Year last year. Let's go to these stats. All right.
This is why I
Jamar
drink.
Chase. Wait, what was that?
This is why I drink.
Yep, this is why you drink. So, let's go to yards. Jamar Chase had 1,455 yards this year. That was better than Justin Jefferson at 1,400. All right. It's a target. It's how many receptions did he have? We get points for receptions. He had 128. Jamar Chase had 128 targets, 81 catches. Let's compare that to Jefferson. 125 targets with 88 catches. Only 2 catch difference. But let's go to the touchdowns. Jamar Chase had 13 touchdowns in his rookie year. Justin Jefferson only had 7, almost doubling. I think this is rest. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah, I don't know what you can really say. Jamar Chase. I think I will say maybe you can still, even now, they made it to the Super Bowl, they didn't win, whatever. That offensive line though, man, like it's not the wrong decision, but now you gotta fix it, Bengals. But they nailed it. So I think they can. I think they can do.
Like
it's like
veterans.
they used the wrong equation, but they got the answer right in the draft. You know what I mean?
You gotta show your work.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they, when they drafted Chase, they knew they were giving up on a top tier lineman of some sort to protect Burrow. But Burrow's like, you know what? I'll just run away from him. I don't care. I just want this guy on my team. And it's funny because if you think back to preseason, Chase was like, oh, I'm not used to seeing the ball without the stripes. And I knew that was really just a rise to get people to think he was like not prepared for the NFL. There's no way if that was true, we would actually say it in public. But then, so I don't think he was like, yeah, preseason's preseason. But, obviously a complete star, and it's only going to get better. The Bengals are actually in a pretty decent position cap wise, and going into the off season. So they still have room to improve and kind of build that offensive line. And I mean, it's, for Bengals fans that, since like the late 80s, early 90s, have just seen misery. I mean, it's a great year for them, and they've got some studs for the next 15 or so years. And Chase is definitely one of them. And he obviously balled out in the playoffs. And I mean, you can't say anything bad about the kid. As a rookie, he's doing things that most veterans couldn't even dream of. So,
Yeah, very true. It looked like there was a point where Chase hit the rookie wall. Mike Tomlin talks about that a lot, and I thought maybe he had kind of hit that rookie wall, but then he finished up strong, and like you said, he did well in playoffs. He did well in Super Bowl, so he definitely showed that he's going to be a good one for years to come, I think. So,
do you guys remember the time that you didn't start him in the Pro Bowl though? Do you remember that?
Take on Mike. Tell me, how did that work out for him?
Well, Jamar Chase worked out great. 50 points that week. Yeah.
Oh man, you gotta start him, right?
hey, Mom's my witness. I didn't necessarily say we should start Chase, but I certainly was saying I was worried about a couple of the other ones.
mhm.
But we didn't get too far in the discussion on that, unfortunately. I should have been a little more assertive.
Yeah.
You're definitely the ass in that part, but
Yeah, I am
you
the
gotta
ass
be
in that.
assertive.
All right, so we will recap the nominations for Rookie of the Year. We have Harris. Don't know why I put a sh on that. Najee Harris, Mac Jones, Kyle Pitts, and Jamar Chase. Those are your 4. We'll move on to the MVP category. We will start that one off with Leonard Fournette. Sean, start us off on this one.
27 years old, Tampa Bay Buccaneer, finished the year as RB6 in PPR, which is pretty damn good. And let's go to the tape. So he had a little over 800 yards rushing. He had 454 yards receiving, 69 targets. Just like Avon said, having a guy getting that kind of target ratio as a running back is real nice. We'll see what happens to him next year, but he had a fantastic year and really helped Silly Dilly win some games that some of us thought he may not.
Yeah, I think that to that point, that's probably the biggest reason for me to have him on, the MVP voting is what he did for Silly. I mean, we made a lot of jokes about Silly, but obviously he made it to the playoffs for a reason, and you can pinpoint, a guy here, a guy there, one week or the other, but Leonard Fournette was there for him pretty much every week. So, unfortunately, except in the playoffs, but.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, you could tell when Fournette wasn't in that lineup for Tampa, how much it affected that offense. I mean, a lot of what they were able to do when they were successful was really in part because Fournette was so dynamic. He could run the ball, he could, pass catch, what have you. Um, when he, because I know he was out, I think a couple of games at least, and their offense just looked completely different without him. And they obviously had some challenges there. So, he's an MVP, I think, for making that team what it was. Obviously, getting helping to get Silly to the playoffs, and I'm pretty sure Silly beat me once or twice this year. So he's, as much as I rag on him for having some low point wins, I mean he got some over me, so I can't really say much, but. I definitely think Fournette should be in the conversation.
Yeah, RB6, he missed 3 games, so I mean that was he was killing it for him. Definitely helped Silly a whole lot this year. All right, let's move on to the next nomination, which is going to be Jonathan Taylor, running back for Sean's favorite guy in the league. Tell us.
Well, that other guy
That other
has
guy.
the 5th overall. If you don't know what overall means, that means everybody in the league that can be counted. 5th overall in PPR, Jonathan Taylor, which is a fantastic year 2 running back. I think we all knew he had this potential. And when Humpty traded him for pennies on the dollar, we all said, "What the F? What the F, Humpty?" Well, let's go to the yards. He had 1,800 yards rushing on 332 attempts. He also had 40 receptions with 360 yards, 20 touchdowns this year, which is absolutely fantastic, seeing how last year he only had 12 total touchdowns. This year he has 20. He had a great year. He definitely carried Ian a couple times this year. I mean, he had a 33-point game and a 51-point game. This is crazy. It's crazy. He's just crazy. He definitely needs to be in this conversation.
Yeah, looking at where JT, I mean, obviously new quarterback this year. They fell just short of the playoffs, and I still don't understand how they lost that game to Jacksonville. But Jonathan Taylor, I mean, just willed that team. Between him and Pittman, obviously, but Jonathan Taylor willed that team into wins, and it's just incredible. I mean, you look at the top running backs, and obviously Derrick Henry would probably be in the conversation if he wasn't injured. But there's few running backs that can really just literally will the team into getting additional points. I remember that 50-point game and wanting to throw up the entire game because he just kept scoring. It was so frustrating. But I mean, what a star! And I missed out. I was one pick behind him. I really wanted. He was going to be my pick if I could get him in that rookie draft, and obviously I didn't. But Yeah, there's not much else to say. I mean, the stats speak for themselves, and he's he's still young. He's got plenty of tread ahead of him, and it's really exciting to see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you guys pretty much nailed everything there, and I think last year you look at it, he was number 6 overall PPR. This year he got even better, number 1 overall for running backs. And there's a lot of talk about what the Colts are going to do with their quarterback, going into next year. And I think Jonathan Taylor's good enough. It doesn't really matter. His stock isn't going to fall on who comes in because whoever it is he's going to be fine. So yeah, he's
I think A-Bomb said it best about Chubb, but I think it fits for JT. A wet blanket could hand the ball off to well.
well, Carson Wentz is not much more than a wet blanket.
He's a moist blanket.
Oh.
Nah, man, JT is a dynamic player. If he gets past that first level, he can take it to the house. So yeah, he's exciting to watch. It's definitely needs to be in the mix here for MVP. All right, let's move on to our next nomination, which is going to be Austin Eckler. Mike, you can start us off since this is your boy. I don't think he moved out of your starting lineup unless he was. I think he missed maybe one game and one bye week, but every other week I think he was right up there in 1 or 2, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, he missed the juiciest game of the season against Houston. And yeah, the Chargers running backs that game absolutely went off. And every time they scored, I thought that could be Eckler in Week 16, which was the championship. So yeah, Eckler's my guy. But yeah, I love Eckler. I mean, you talk about the dual threat kind of guy. That's Eckler. He can run it, he can catch, he does really everything. And the nice thing about Eckler for me, that's long term, I guess. He doesn't have a lot of wear on his tires. He's not a volume guy. He doesn't play 100% of snaps. He rarely plays over 80, really. So, but RB2. And everybody talks about that 27-year-old running back gap, age, and I'm not worried about it with Eckler. He's getting better as he gets older. The dude is a monster, and he just continues to be that way. So I'm excited for him to never be traded and retire on my team. So
Well said, Tank Top Mike. Just doing a little stat review on what he did this year. He had 203 attempts, 911 rushing yards. He had 647 receiving yards on 70 catches, 94 targets, and he had 20 total touchdowns. That is a damn good player to have on your team. There's nobody in this league that would not want Austin Eckler on their team.
Yeah, I mean, scoring 20 touchdowns, and look at who else has opportunity to take those targets. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. I mean, that team is a group of stars. Obviously just missed out on the playoffs in that game. The almost tied, but didn't. But looking throughout the year, I mean, consistently just high motor. It was the reason they got, they could let, who was it, Melvin Gordon go back when he was supposed to be the starter. I mean, obviously Eckler's kind of coming into his own as far as just being a dynamic pass catcher. That offense is going to be continuing to rise. I mean, he's approaching 30, but he still definitely has several good years left. This was just another great example of that.
He's got
and he definitely helped you, Mike, win a lot of games this year, and he was a definite cornerstone of your lineup.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a great work ethic, so I think he can play a couple more years. I'm not so worried about his age, Mike. I think that he works hard enough that he's buying some time with his work ethic. So I think you got a good one for another couple of years probably. All right, let's move on to our last nominee in the MVP category, and that is Cooper Kupp. Another one for you, Mike. I'm going to let you start it off.
Triple Crown winner right here. even Ian agrees. This guy needs to be MVP. I mean, just I don't even I don't want to dangle on the cups here too much, but phenomenal season. Um, I'm going to give myself a little bit of credit because I traded for him specifically. I obviously did not think that it was going to be this incredible of a season, but as soon as Stafford went there, I thought I want Cooper Cup, and I went out made and that worked out. I fended off some early season trade offers, knowing that this was going to be sustainable. Um, Incredible season, really. I mean, I don't know what else you can say. Everything's been said. Dude's awesome.
I know what could be said. I think you should be freaking arrested for the trade you made to get him. Josh Reynolds and Zach Moss gave you the #1 overall freaking player in fantasy PPR. And on top of it, you got a 3rd-round pick to boot. That's got to be highway robbery. I bet Humpty's looking at that trade going, that's got to be the worst trade I've ever done in my life.
It's my gift for having to watch all those Detroit games. I had to watch Matthew Stafford play for a really bad team for a long time. So when I saw him go to a good team, I wanted a piece of that real quick.
Yep, you really nailed it. I mean, seeing Stafford go to that offense, I knew somebody was going to blow up. I didn't think it was Cup, honestly. I thought maybe Robert Woods or somebody, but obviously, what can you say? They just won the Super Bowl. I mean, now granted, I mean he triple crown winner with one extra game, but week in and week out, I mean, just getting so many targets. And obviously, getting that many targets usually isn't sustainable. Eventually, they, double and triple team you. But, Tyreek Hill had a couple bad games this year because that specifically. They're just like, all right, we're going to shut you down for the game. But you can't do that to Cooper Kupp. Like, he can just run routes so well that he's going to find openings, and Matthew Stafford's going to get it to him. So, I mean, obviously, there's not much you can say. He had a phenomenal season and definitely, obviously, deserves to be in this conversation.
I know what you can say, A-Bomb. How do you win the Triple Crown and not get MVP? Absolute farce. An absolute farce.
Yeah, they're partial to quarterbacks. Just asked Justin Jefferson last year with the Rookie of the Year. But, that's the thing. It's, I don't know. That whole MVP situation's its own issue. But
Yeah,
at least you got MVP of the Super Bowl, right?
That's right. That's right.
You're gonna have one. Might as well be that one, right?
And Mike, when you got him, I thought he'd be a real good flex for you. I didn't foresee him having this season. I don't think a lot of people did, but he definitely came into his own this year, and he's got a great chemistry with Stafford. I think they can keep it going for another couple of years for sure. So you did well with that one, my friend. All right, that concludes the MVP category. I'll run them down again for you. That is, start out with Leonard Fournette, Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, and Cooper Kupp. Those are your 4 nominees for the MVP category. We've got one more category to go over.
I can't wait.
The one that everyone's been waiting for, our favorite one. So this category is the #1 song on Ricky and Ian's road trip mixtape. This is going to be fun, guys. All right. Let's start it right off. The first nomination in this category is "The Wind Beneath My Wings" by Bette Midler. Sean, I think you got this on your iPod, whatever.
Well, I haven't had an iPod since like 2010, so I don't know what you're talking about. But when I think of this song, I just see Ian running through a field of daisies and Humpty at the end, and he just raises them up over his head, and they're just having a moment, and they spin around.
Spin around. Yeah, I got to do the spin around.
just real love, between the two.
It makes me. I remember the song from the movie Beaches. So I have the same running, but it's on a beach together.
Ah, okay.
Like with the
Another
flowing white cotton shirts,
another nice image. Another nice image.
Lilacs and daisies, and it's I'm trying to picture this and hold down dinner, and I'm not sure I can do it. So we'll stick with the graphics that have been presented so far. So
It's gonna be a lot of this. Moving on.
Moving on. All right, let's go on to our second nomination. That is My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. Hey, that rhymes.
All right, here's the image. All right, Ian's on the door with plenty of room for Humpty to get on the door with him, but Ian's just taking his hand and just pushing Humpty down into the water, saying bye bye. Come on, tell me that is not how that would go if those are two.
yeah, that's probably accurate. The other graphic that came to my mind was, the championship trophy on the door, and Ian, desperately grasping as he was sinking away. But that's a different debate. But no less, my heart will go on. Everyone's speechless now.
Anything, Mike?
There's something about a steamy old Ford. I don't know. I don't have it all figured out in my head yet, but we should probably move on.
A steamy old Ford. All right, next one, please. Oh, my face hurts.
All right, we'll move on to our third nomination in this category. Number one song on Ricky and Ian's road trip mixtape. I Would Do Anything for Love by Meatloaf.
I think in this instance, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. I think that is them trading with each other at this point.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
I can't say anything about this. I just see Humpty like serenading Ian from across this stage and just getting all into it like the lead singer of Meatloaf. Oh man, absolutely hilarious.
The lead singer of Meatloaf. Did you guys catch that? Oh, Sean. Another classic Sean moment. Who is
That's what the
the
pictures come for,
bonus question? Who is the lead singer of Meatloaf? Oh, all right. Well, let's wrap this one up. Number one song on Ricky and Ian's road trip mixtape. Nomination number 4 is All I Want to Do Is Make Love to You by Heart.
I'm
A little steamy in here, guys.
gonna paint the picture on this one.
Whew, okay.
I feel like they're getting in the car. They're ready to go. The odometer's set to 0. The trip meter's set to 0. Ricky turns the car on, gets ready to go, puts the CD in, turns the volume to 10, song plays. Ian looks over, hand on the shoulder, quietly turns the volume to 15. They go off. That's how that's going to go right there.
I can't follow that. All right.
It's a good thing we upload this and Ian doesn't have to do that part anymore. This whole show would mysteriously get lost.
delete.
Well, Commissioner, you want to go down the voting?
Yeah. Well, just to wrap up that category, I just picture a lot of them looking over at each other, across the front seats of the car, the happy moments of these songs. Just a lot of long gazes,
Ian with his hand out the window in the Okay.
Oh yeah. You gotta go like this.
Yeah, happy times. Happy times. That's what I picture is happy times. All right, so just like last season, I will send out an email with all of this in writing, and you can submit your votes to me. So I'll be the only one that knows, and we'll reveal them in next week's show, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. So look for that. Look for that in your inboxes. We'll get that voting done this week.
All right, a quick review of the show. A-Bomb's champ. We have a bunch of nominations for really good categories, and Ian and Ricky are going on a road trip where they hold hands and run through daisies. Oh yeah, Ian, you suck.